Hello, I'm Mike Frescona with Speed City International. If you're new to training with the Quickfoot ladder, then this video will teach you many of its basic uses and demonstrate its incredible capabilities. If you're already familiar with Quickfoot ladder training, then this video will reveal to you some of the new training techniques that you may have never seen before. Either way, after viewing this video, you'll be ready to attack your Quickfoot ladder training and start developing superior balance, rhythm, body control, and lightning quick feet.
Through the course of this video, you will see 70 drills that can be performed on the Quickfoot ladder. The drills fall into skill categories of linear, lateral, change of direction, and jumping, as well as a category on variations and one demonstrating drills that can be performed on Speed City's Shatter ladder. As you implement the techniques from this video into your training routine, you should strive to follow the 3 basic rules. First, master the basic drills in each category before progressing to the more difficult drills. The drills within each category are generally arranged from easiest to hardest. All athletes progress at different rates, but make sure you are always capable of performing the basic drills. Even when your workouts become comprised of the most difficult drills, the easy ones are great to mix in for a little rest. Second, as you do each repetition, view the ladder in thirds and switch gears with each third. This means going slow enough in the first third to create a perfect rhythm and motion. In the second third, you should accelerate the perfect motion from the first. The final third is where you aim to reach top speed. If you're going to mess up and hit the ladder, you want it to be in the last third. Finally, as you move through the ladder, listen to your feet. Because each drill has its own unique pattern, it also has its own unique sound or beat. Concentrate on this sound and making it gradually increase in tempo. By following these 3 basic rules, you will ensure that you get the most out of your training on the Quickfoot ladder. Linear speed is the type speed used when an athlete sprints straight ahead. The drills in this section are designed to help athletes develop the rhythm, posture, and technique necessary for generating blazing linear speed. On this first drill, the athlete alternately places one foot in each hole and concentrates on maintaining an upright posture. It is essential that the athlete learn to keep the backward snap of the elbow in sync with the feet. As the right elbow drives back, the right knee drives forward, and vice versa. Like with all drills on this video, only the front portion of the athlete's foot strikes the ground. 2-foot runs is performed exactly the same way as 1-foot runs, except that both feet must now land in each square. Motions here are shorter and faster than those used in 1-foot runs. Be sure to perform equal repetitions leading with your right and left foot. When performing brake runs, start off using the same motions as 1-foot runs, then at the halfway point, switch to the motions of 2-foot runs. Switching motions will give you the sensation of slamming on your brakes. At the point of transition, the athlete must control his body and accelerate his feet and elbows rather than losing control and falling forward. Ladder skips are a great drill for teaching sprint mechanics. The athlete should concentrate on keeping a straight line from the heels to the top of the head. Also important is the lifting of the thigh to a position parallel with the ground and placing the foot in a cocked position by pulling the toe towards the shin. The athlete should quickly and powerfully pop off the ground with each strike of the foot. When performing scissor skips, the athlete keeps his knees locked and uses only the flip of the ankle to propel the body forward. Again, the upper body must be kept in sync with the lower body. This drill helps familiarize the athlete with the clawing motion of the leg used during top speed sprinting. As mentioned earlier, basic skipping motions are essential for smooth, fluid sprinting. To help athletes master skipping technique, we like to force them to skip in a variety of odd positions. One simple way to do this on the Quickfoot ladder is to have them skip with their feet outside the ladder. Here the athlete keeps his feet outside the ladder, leans forward, and drives his elbows and knees. This drill is an excellent one to perform while being resisted, as will be demonstrated in the variations section of this video. Like many of the other drills in this section, dead leg skips emphasize correct sprint angles and the proper placement of the knee during top speed sprinting. The athlete begins with his feet staggered and only the lead foot in the first square of the ladder. The outside leg, or dead leg, remains locked during the entire repetition and is used only as a support crutch. The lead leg is shifted to a position where the knee is roughly waist level and then quickly returned to the ground. The foot of the lead leg should remain in a cocked position with the toe pulled towards the shin. As the athlete progresses through the ladder by rapidly firing the lead leg, the upper body should remain upright and relaxed, and the elbows should snap in rhythm with the knees. Lateral speed is the skill responsible for great defensive plays. An athlete possessing superior lateral speed is able to perfectly mirror the movements of his opponent and thus act as a roadblock to all scoring opportunities. The most basic lateral motion drill is a lateral run. In this drill, both feet land in each square before moving on to the next square. It is of utmost importance that an athlete keep their shoulders in a position parallel with the sides of the ladder. By maintaining this position, the athlete is capable of reversing their movement from left to right. Athletes that begin to open their shoulders towards the direction they are moving leave themselves vulnerable to a cutback by the offensive player. As with all lateral drills, make sure you give equal attention to performing reps both to your left and right. This drill is similar to the last, but requires the athlete to perform the lateral run with a wider base. The athlete starts with both feet in the ladder, with one square separating the feet. The trail foot is then picked up and placed in the separation hole, followed by the lead foot advancing one hole. The feet are never in the same hole. They are always either separated by a single hole or are in adjacent holes. As an athlete becomes more proficient with lateral movement, this positioning will become second nature and make them tougher to defeat defensively. The cross-country skier drill requires lateral balance and nimble feet. For this drill, the athlete begins with the lead foot in the first square and the trail foot directly behind and outside the first square. The feet quickly switch places, and then the athlete moves to the second hole and repeats. As with all lateral drills, the athlete should aim to keep his shoulders locked in a position parallel with the sides of the ladder. This drill is similar to the last, except with a slight variation. The athlete once again begins with the lead foot in the first square and the trail foot directly behind and outside the first square. However, when the athlete initiates the drill, the first move is to hop to the second square and to switch positioning of the feet. Every time the athlete switches the positioning of the feet, he progresses to the next hole. It is important that the athlete keep his feet inside the framework of the hips at all times and not allow the feet to become split widely where one trails behind the other. The skill of jumping not only involves the height of each jump, but also the speed of one jump after another. By minimizing the time spent on the ground, an athlete is able to better control the vertical aspect of competition. Rabbit hops teach several of the basic skills needed for successful jumping. Here the athlete simply hops through each of the ladder's holes while maintaining an upright posture, keeping the weight on the front of his feet, and coordinating the quick thrust of the hips with the quick thrust of the hands and arms. As soon as the athlete's feet touch the ground, the hips and arms should instantly fire forward and upward to propel the athlete into the next hop. The emphasis here should be on quickness off the ground rather than height. Jump cuts are great for any athlete that competes in a sport that requires the ability to cut on a dime. The athlete's feet are kept together and alternately hop in and out of the ladder. The knees should be bent to absorb shock, and a slightly crouched position should be maintained at all times. Straddle hops place the athlete in a low, wide-based defensive position. The athlete should pretend he has a board between his ankles that keeps the feet locked in approximately 2 feet or more of separation. Contacts with the ground should be light, quick, and only involve the ball of the foot. As with all drills in this section, the athlete should spend as little time as possible on the ground in between each hop. Backward straddle hops are performed exactly the same way as regular straddle hops, except that the athlete moves backwards. Since defensive plays during competition typically require athletes to move in reverse, the backwards motion of this drill even more specifically mimics actual game skills. As an athlete performs this drill, he should keep his eyes on the hole directly underneath his hips and the hole directly behind his hips. The athlete begins this drill in the same position as regular straddle hops. However, the foot that is positioned in the ladder will remain in the ladder throughout the entire repetition, and the foot positioned outside the ladder will remain outside the ladder throughout the entire repetition. On each hop, the body should turn 180 degrees, with the outside foot rotating behind the body. The outside foot will land on the opposite side of the ladder from where it began. Chimney jumps focus on leaping while maintaining body control. Here the athlete leaps from maximum height, skips one hole, and lands in the third. The athlete should imagine the target hole to be a chimney, which he must jump high enough to clear and then be under control enough to drop straight down without scraping the walls. Lateral chimney jumps are performed the same way as chimney jumps, except that they are done sideways. The goal is still simply body control, but don't be fooled, this drill is much harder than it looks. The Crazy Climber drill helps athletes develop a quick rebound off the ground and also enhances hip flexibility and rhythm. An athlete performing the Crazy Climber should keep his feet locked in approximately an 18-inch separation. When hopping, both feet should hit the ground at the same time, and the hips should be on a constant swivel. Notice that the athlete always pivots off the foot on the inside of the ladder, and that the athlete's upper body generally remains pointed towards the end of the quickfoot ladder. The backwards Crazy Climber is simply a more difficult version of the regular Crazy Climber. Here, the athlete must have a keen sense of body positioning and control, and should obviously master the regular version before kicking it into reverse. This version of hopscotch is the first of 4 hopscotch variations. In this most basic version, the athlete starts with both feet inside the first hole, and then hops forward and lands with a foot on either side of the second hole. This pattern is repeated through the entire length of the ladder. The athlete should concentrate on maintaining a low center of gravity, especially as the speed of the hops increase. After an athlete has gotten a handle on the basic hopscotch motions, the drill can be performed in reverse. Just as in the basic version, all of the athlete's body weight should be placed on the front of the feet. To further increase the difficulty of the hopscotch drill, an athlete can perform it laterally. Here the athlete begins with both feet in the first hole. The athlete then hops to the second hole and lands with one foot outside and on top of the ladder, and the other foot outside and below the ladder. The athlete then hops with both feet back into the third hole and repeats. A further variation of this drill is to alternate which foot lands on top of and behind the ladder on every other hop. For the most ambitious hopscotch athletes, this drill can be performed while continuously rotating 360 degrees. This is done by starting with both feet in the first hole and then hopping and splitting the feet outside the second hole. However, when hopping to the third hole, the athlete will perform a 180-degree turn and land backwards in the hole. The athlete remains in a backwards position when splitting his feet outside the fourth hole. This pattern of rotation is then repeated for the entire length of the ladder. Change of direction is the skill that allows an athlete to combine the skills of linear speed, lateral speed, and jumping. An athlete possessing no change of direction skills is similar to a car with no steering wheel. Thus, this skill plays a central role in the success of any competitive athlete. The first change of direction drill is swivel skips. These are performed by cross-stepping laterally into the first square over the lead foot. The lead foot is then quickly brought back to a normal position next to the trail foot in the first square. The motion is then repeated for the rest of the ladder. Notice that the athlete's shoulders stay locked in a position parallel to the sides of the ladder, and the hips quickly and smoothly rotate with each step. When performing the buzzsaw, the athlete begins in a lateral position behind the first hole of the ladder. The athlete then steps into the first hole with the lead foot and then into the hole with the trail foot. The athlete then exits the hole by stepping out with the lead foot and then stepping out with the trail foot. The athlete should enter and exit each hole of the ladder with both feet before moving on to the next hole. This drill is performed the same way as the regular buzzsaw, except that only one foot steps up into each hole. The athlete should look at the holes in groups of 2. Each hole will only be hit with 1 foot contact before the athlete moves on to the next group of 2. The Icky Shuffle is one of the best drills that can be performed on the quick foot ladder, in part because it lays the groundwork for many other drills in this section. The foot pattern used in this drill involves stepping into each hole with both feet and then stepping to either side of the ladder with only 1 foot. Because this is such an important drill, we encourage athletes to take this one slow and really master it before moving on. Once the athlete masters the basic pattern of this drill, lightning speed can be achieved by concentrating on speeding up the sound of the feet. The wide step Icky Shuffle is a great drill for improving lateral change of direction speed. Here the athlete simply performs the original Icky Shuffle, but exaggerates the motions by stepping wider outside the ladder and lifting the feet higher. As with many of the other drills demonstrated, the difficulty of the Icky Shuffle can be increased by performing it in reverse. Athletes should concentrate only on the ladder square their feet are currently in and on the square their feet are about to be in. At any point during this drill, these are the only 2 squares the athlete should focus on. Once an athlete has mastered the Icky Shuffle moving frontwards and backwards, the next step is to learn to do a 180-degree turn in the middle. This is done by using one of the squares as a pivot square. In this square, the body rotates 180 degrees on the foot that steps in, and then the athlete continues the rep in a backwards motion. After mastering the 180-degree Icky Shuffle, the most ambitious athletes can attempt the 360-degree Icky Shuffle. This simply involves continuously repeating the pivoting motion used to perform the 180. This is one of, if not the most difficult drills that can be performed on the ladder, and any athletes capable of performing it can consider themselves certified quickfoot ladder masters. Similar to the Icky Shuffle, the double-step Icky Shuffle requires that the athlete take 1 extra step. Instead of both feet touching in the middle and only 1 on the outside, here both feet touch outside the ladder before coming back in. Touching outside the ladder with both feet is initially very awkward for the athlete because it deviates from the normal pattern of left-right, left-right. This drill requires the athlete to step in a pattern of left-right, right-left. The crossover Icky Shuffle follows the same basic rhythm as all the other drills in the Icky Shuffle family. The big change in this drill is that the athlete leads into each hole with what would normally be the trail foot in the regular Icky Shuffle. The result is a constant crossing of the feet and rotation of the hips. Yet another variation is the lateral Icky Shuffle. Here the athlete moves laterally with only the lead foot touching in front of the ladder and only the trail foot touching behind the ladder and both feet touching inside the ladder. When initiating this drill, the athlete must first step into the square with the lead foot. Also, notice that the athlete's body generally stays centered above the ladder throughout the drill. The double-step lateral Icky Shuffle works the same way as the last drill, except that both feet touch outside the top and bottom of the ladder. As mentioned earlier during the double-step Icky Shuffle, the difficulty of this drill stems from the abnormal rhythm of the feet. As opposed to stepping in a typical right-left pattern, the athlete is required to step in a right-left, left-right pattern. The next 6 drills involve what is called a whip motion with one of the legs. On this drill, the athlete moves in a linear path and keeps the lead leg inside the ladder and hits every hole. The trail leg stays outside the ladder and alternately whips from side to side. The athlete's shoulders should stay aimed towards the end of the ladder throughout the repetition, and only the hips should rotate. This drill is identical to the last, except that the legs switch roles. Here, the trail leg stays inside the ladder and hits every hole, while the lead leg performs the whipping motion in front of the body. As you now probably anticipate, the linear lead whip drill demonstrated earlier can also be turned around and performed backwards. Here, the trail leg performs the whipping motion and the lead leg stays inside the ladder. Just as the name of the drill communicates, the backwards lead whip involves moving backwards through the ladder, with the trail leg inside the ladder and the lead leg performing the whipping motion. The different type of whip drills can also be performed laterally. Here the athlete performs a lateral trail whip. The lead leg stays inside the ladder and the trail leg alternately whips from bottom to top. Similar to the other lateral drills, the athlete's shoulders should stay locked in a position parallel to the sides of the ladder, and only the hips should rotate. Just the opposite of the last drill, the feet switch roles and the lead leg performs the whip motion. Remember, when doing drills that require lateral motion, athletes must complete equal repetitions moving both to their right and to their left. Named after one of the Speed City's staff members, the Jeter whip involves a motion similar to the linear trail whip demonstrated earlier. If you will recall, the linear trail whip involved the lead leg staying inside the ladder and the trail leg staying outside the ladder and whipping back and forth. The difference here is that the legs constantly switch roles during the repetition, with both alternately serving as the lead leg and the whip leg. Take a look at this drill in slow motion to get a feel for the pattern. After an athlete has mastered all the different versions of the Icky Shuffle, they can then throw themselves into a tailspin by trying to learn the inverted Icky Shuffle. Here the athlete begins with both feet inside the first hole. The right foot steps to the right of the second hole, and then the left foot steps to the left of the second hole. The right foot then steps into the second hole, and then the left foot steps into the second hole. This pattern is then repeated for the full length of the ladder. Of course, the inverted Icky Shuffle can also be performed backwards. In addition, take note that the inverted Icky Shuffle feels completely different depending on which foot initiates the movement. So athletes should try doing equal repetitions where they first step with their right and left foot. The inverted Icky Shuffle is also an excellent drill to perform laterally. As with all lateral drills, athletes should perform equal repetitions to both the right and the left. Once again, the most ambitious athletes can take a swing at performing the inverted Icky Shuffle while constantly rotating 360 degrees down the full length of the ladder. This drill requires the athlete to use every other hole as a pivot hole. Rather than trying to explain every step, we'll just give you a good look at this drill in slow motion. To keep athletes interested in their daily training, the workouts must remain challenging. This can be accomplished by mixing in new drills or by adding a new twist to an existing drill. This section teaches a number of variations that can be applied to most all of the quick-foot ladder drills demonstrated thus far. The most basic variation is for the athlete to sprint out of the ladder at the end of the repetition. The idea is for the athlete to maintain into the sprint all of the foot speed that is being generated at the end of the ladder. In the case of backwards drills, the athlete will have to perform a 180-degree turn before performing the sprint. This technique is excellent for balance, body control, and transitional speed. Just the opposite of the last drill, the athlete can perform a short 5 to 10 yard sprint into the ladder. By carrying momentum from the sprint into the ladder, the athlete is forced to quickly decelerate, maintain control of his body, and then focus on the correct firing sequence for the feet in the ladder. This simple adjustment can make even the easiest drill far more difficult. Hybrids simply involve the athlete picking two drills and switching from one to the other at the halfway mark. This is great for forcing the athlete to quickly change gears and smoothly perform a separate pattern. For even more difficulty, a coach could verbally tell the athlete which drill to switch to at the halfway mark. Pursuit drills are a fun variation when more than one athlete is present. Both athletes perform the same drill, and the athlete moving backwards initiates the drill. The goal is for the athlete moving forward to catch his opponent by getting his feet into the same hole as his opponent's feet. This is an excellent drill for simulating one-on-one situations between offensive and defensive players. During competition, athletes' movements are constantly being disrupted by other players on the field or court. Since this is a natural part of competition, it should also be a common component in an athlete's training. This can be accomplished by having a coach or training partner nudge and shove an athlete while the athlete is performing a drill on the quick-foot ladder. This technique gives the athlete the feel of trying to perform while in a crowd of people. Being able to quickly switch directions and foot patterns is an important physical and mental skill for an athlete to possess. One way to develop this skill is to perform audible commands. Here the athlete picks a drill and changes directions each time the coach gives an audible command, such as a clap or a change call. It is important that the athlete react to and not anticipate the command. Sensory commands are performed the same way as audible commands, except that the coach now tells the athlete to change directions by tapping him on the shoulder. This can be done by having the athlete move in the direction of the coach's tap as shown here. Another technique is for the coach to designate a hot spot that, when tapped, triggers the athlete to change direction. By using a rolled up beach towel or one of Speed City's Vipers as shown here, an athlete can be resisted in almost every drill demonstrated on this video. It is strongly recommended that the athlete master the drill without resistance before this is attempted. When using a Viper, notice that the anchor athlete slowly moves with the lead athlete during the repetition to prevent the flexicord from becoming dangerously overstretched. A Viper can also be used to assist an athlete through a drill. The assistance of the Viper forces the athlete to move his feet faster than normal to keep from falling over. The key here is for the athlete to maintain perfect motion for that particular drill and not to miss any squares. By folding the ladder into a crooked pattern, any drill can be transformed into somewhat of a brain teaser for the athlete. The goal is for the athlete to maintain the footwork of the drill when confronted by corners and turns. The athlete must constantly and quickly adapt to the changes in the shape of the ladder. Even if the athlete is forced to briefly improvise, he should be encouraged to keep moving and constantly adapting. An athlete may think he has mastered a ladder drill because he can perform it forwards, backwards, and in a 360-degree motion. But how good is the athlete when the ladder itself starts moving? Try placing a coach at the opposite end of the ladder from the athlete. When the athlete begins the repetition, the coach should begin walking and pulling the ladder away from the athlete.